whole issue of same-sex marriage is related to issues of freedom, religious freedom and intellectual freedom. Why should this be? Before we go into some of the issues of intellectual and religious freedom, let's ponder why there should here particularly be issues where there is so much ostensible bullying, intimidation, shouting down and repression of views by those who hold contrary to the same-sex lobby. I believe that the reason for this is actually systemic to the very concept of the human being to which the same-sex marriage proponents adhere. This is a view of the human being in which the physical dimension, psychological dimension dominates. There's no concept that a human being could have a conscience which could actually feel dissatisfied with impulses which he or she experiences. Rather, the impulse is the person, and one must follow that impulse. In other words, this is a deterministic view of the human being. You are what your body, what your psyche tells you to be. There's no consultation with conscience. There's no inner struggle. The struggle which our tradition knows to be the essentially human. That we have issues, but we have to deal with those and we have to square them with a moral standard of conscience. And because this is a deterministic view of the human being, that the impulse is the person, not the conscience in struggle with that impulse, therefore this determinism carries over into the whole concept of intellectual inquiry and religious and the expression of opinions, including religious opinions. The notion that there should be freedom to express views which are contrary to the dominating worldview of same-sex marriage is rejected, just as the conscience as something which could do struggle with internal impulse is similarly rejected. Let's look very briefly at how these repressions of freedom work. First of all, in the religious realm, we see first of all in the Safe Schools program that not aside from the harm done to children by playing on their uncertainty at a very suggestible stage of development, there is also the complete disregard of the right of parents to raise their children in their own values. The concept of religious transmission between family, parents and child is interrupted, negated and rejected. Then there is the attempt also, and we see this in the proposed bill for same-sex marriage, to prohibit individuals from withholding their services in the case of a same-sex marriage celebration. In other words, what that means is that while the bill will supposedly allow clergy to decide whether they want or will or will not perform such a marriage, this right is not extended to individuals, to caterers, to people, to photographers, to florists. If they will not go along and offer their services in a ceremony which runs directly contrary to their opinions and their beliefs, they face prosecution. Then we see also that in Sweden, the Prime Minister of Sweden has announced his intention to try to coerce clergy to coerce clergy to perform same-sex marriages, even where this is in direct contradiction to their own beliefs. And we have seen a case in England in a religious community called Vishnitz, where a religious school, a religious Jewish school, did not have a curriculum of lesbian and homosexual behaviors because this was repugnant to its belief system. It did not want its girl students, it was a girls' school, to have to be submitted to this. The local authorities came in and they produced reports which intimated that were the school not to adopt such a curriculum, the school would face drastic consequences. There was then a tremendous reaction within the community, The matter got onto 11,000 websites, I'm told, and 50,000 signatures were produced to protest this local government authority, and that the authority then withdrew its report and fudged it. But were it not for that outcry, we see that agencies under a regime of same-sex marriage seek to make uniform this kind of education. This education, even in religious schools, the enclave of religious freedom is invaded by the state, as we've noticed in cases where same-sex marriage has been legalized. Next time I want to speak a little bit more briefly, so shortly, I want to speak more about the question of intellectual freedom at large. But this is the whole problem of the danger to religious freedom, which is posed by an inherently authoritarian doctrine, the doctrine that the human being is no more than an impulse.